Yo,
Hi.
hello, hello. How's it going?
I'm well. How are you?
Nice. I'm doing pretty good. Excited to do this lesson.
Yeah, I'm excited. It's been a couple years in the making.
Yeah. No, it's taken me a while sometimes. I definitely haven't been perfect with it, but
Well,
I'm glad we
I'm sure
made
you're
it.
busy. Yeah, it honestly came at the right time because around the time I hit you up for lessons, I was playing Sheik, and then I figured out that beating spaces with Donkey Kong is way easier, so I played Donkey Kong for 2 years. And then
Okay.
the day I switched back to Sheik, the day I was talking to my friend, I'm like, I think I should just go ham on Sheik before I'm like 35 and I regret never trying.
Yeah, it was before you're a 35-year-old DK, and you're like, how did I get here?
And the day that happened, you DM'd me, and I was like, "Holy shit! All right, let's do it."
Okay, that's sick. That's a sick coincidence.
But yeah,
Okay, let's just do the quick intro so you can just say your tag, where you're from, how long you've been playing, and your goals for the game. You already went into like a little bit of your history, but just if you could go through those really quick.
I'm Meleesadposts. I've been playing for quite a long time, or I've been thinking
Wait,
about
so what
playing
did
for
you say? What was you see your tag was?
Meleesadposts.
Okay, wait. So you have your Discord tag as Trinity. So I wrote that in the lesson title. Can you just type out
Okay.
your tag really quick, and I can change the title? Got it. I didn't realize that that was your actual tag. I just thought that was like your Twitter.
Oh yeah, I'll probably end up changing it eventually, but
Okay, one sec. Uh. Okay, yeah. Sorry about that. I was just
oh no, yeah, no rush.
I just sometimes go off the Discord tag. Okay, yeah. Sorry. Continue.
But yeah, I've been playing for a long time. I played for like 3 years, and then I stopped playing, and then I got back into the game when NetPlay came out,
Mm-hmm.
and then now I'm here.
Cool. And what are your goals?
I would like to be PR'd in Chicago, like
Okay.
15. Is
And
like
how far are you from that, or how close are you to that?
I have no idea, no idea really. Like I've played some of the PR players. I've almost beaten some of them. Like I
Mm-hmm.
went to last stock game three with Blue with DK Falco, and that's kind of what made me switch. I'm like, if I could do this with DK, I could easily do it with Sheik.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, cool. And have you been like going to a lot of events recently, or?
I live in a town called Vincennes, Indiana, with 9,000 people. It's like 3 hours away. It's like 3 hours away from any sort of
Ah,
scene,
okay, okay.
and yeah. So now that I have net play, I'm a little bit more motivated. I just got it. But when I
Oh,
went to
like you didn't even
college,
have like good net play when you were there.
yeah, for like the first 6 years of my melee career, I had no access to playing real people. But
That's crazy.
whenever
Did
I
not.
moved to college, whenever I moved to college, I instantly got good. I instantly got number one on my city. So
I see. Okay. Yeah, that's like an old school origin story. Like people always used to just be like, "Yeah, I just played with my brother for like 6 years or whatever." Like they just
yeah,
didn't. When you don't have a lot of people around, it's tough to
yeah.
find the good practice. Okay, cool. So that sounds good. What are we going over today? What are you trying to look at?
Um, I'm having like this problem where I'm fighting a really good spacey, and eventually the whole screen just turn. You ever played Fallout and your head gets crippled and then the whole screen just starts shaking and making like a noise? It's
Yeah, I
that's
know.
how it
Yeah,
feels
I
when
know what you mean.
I just like I can't possibly comprehend what's going on, and then I
mm,
could play somebody who's about as good as me, who's on the same level, but like once that starts, I don't know if it's like an ADHD thing, but once
mm-hmm.
that starts, like I fall apart and I just lose. I get three stocked even though it was like close. I don't
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So you have a ADHD.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, I know a couple players who struggle with like ADHD stuff, and I think it's kind of like depending on how it works differently for everybody, but it's definitely like an extra burden that you have to like hardcore solve in addition from like the people I've talked to who have it. Um, definitely seems definitely seems rough. It's
Yeah.
always interesting playing OKP because he's got ADHD and it'll just be like 1 out of every 4 friendlies he's just not there, and it's just like a 30-second 4 stock, and then he's back and he's doing stuff, and I'm always like, oh man, that seems rough.
Yeah, especially unmedicated.
Yeah, I see. Yeah, makes sense. I don't really understand exactly how medicated versus unmedicated would like make somebody feel on ADHD, but if it can help, that's good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I've seen a couple of replays versus 404 Cray, and like the main thing I wanted to ask, like the main thing I wanted to focus on this lesson, is how Spaceys overwhelm me, and I think Spaceys overwhelm me because I don't have like a game plan.
Mm-hmm.
Like I don't like have specific. Like I'm just like, oh my god, Spacey is fast.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm like, I have to play reactively with my drift, like short hop, drift, and then I get bored of doing that, and then I die.
Okay.
And then one last thing, when I was fighting 4-4 Cray and when I was fighting Essie, a combo breaker, it's very like obvious to me now, like melee isn't just like tech skill and mind games. It's like it's like people reacting to very explicit stimuli, and then they have like a snap reaction they've trained to do a sequence of events based on that. So I need to figure out how to develop those. That's all really.
Okay. Yeah, it's just when you mention the sort of like just sort of removing ADHD from the equation, I feel like a lot of times when people feel overwhelmed by Spaceys in particular, it's because they're trying to react to too many reaction points. And so a lot of times people will get like, I just need to do this if they do this, and 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 then the fox just dash dances for 2 seconds and their brain overheats. Because they're trying to like...
Exactly what happens, yeah.
Okay, yeah. So a lot of times the solution to that is you're going to be looking... Okay, so first of all, and this is really important in Melee in general, is to just remember that the other player is just as human and like as a player as you at like all times. So like if it ever feels like they're just doing something like mystical and crazy and reading everything, it's just really important to remember that they are just doing like what you would do. They're just like having some idea, and except you're the chump who like jumps into it from their end. You're like aha, of like just sort of recognizing that like their ideas have a sort of like quality, like level of quality to them. And unless they're just seriously like putting out like crazy genius ideas over and over and over, then like ultimately a lot of times that feeling of being overwhelmed is like a fake feeling, but a lot of times it happens from like over focusing on too many reaction points. And a lot of times I think what I'll do is like, especially against like Falco, for instance, I will put myself in like a position where Falco can't immediately reach me, and the only thing I'm thinking about in that position is approaching laser. Or that's like an example, but that actually happens a lot, where I'm just like, well, if they don't do something that's not approaching laser, like I can react really easily without really any consequences. So I'm mostly gonna be like thinking about that and like sort of like ignoring a lot of other stimuli. Like it's really important to kind of like compartmentalize and ignore a lot of stuff, especially with like Fox players. Like I feel like this is true for all the top players. We don't actually like look at Fox all that closely. Fox the Fox player has to be going so fast that like they can't be consciously doing all of their dash dances. Like it's just impossible. They're gonna be doing some form of like what's the best way to describe it? Like, if they're doing like a retreat, maybe this retreat, or like they're gonna retreat for a second and then approach for a second. Maybe the retreat for a second, approach for a second has like several different inputs or like mini sequences in it of like inputs that they're doing. But ultimately, like their decision making was just like move away and then move back in with like attacks. And a lot of times against Spaceys and Fox in particular, I like super reduce the game to like, are they trying to cross, like they'll do a little dash dance and they'll kind of like set up like a line that they don't want to cross. And I'll just be like, okay, like until they cross that line, I am not paying attention to like what they're doing, for instance.
Yeah, okay.
So that's just like a method that I use kind of in general to deal with that.
Yeah, and I can see how focusing on like one thing like that can lead to you finding patterns more easily.
Yeah, because otherwise you're just trying to like respond to too much. I think
Yeah,
a lot
yeah.
of times it's more important. I think JMOOC is like the perfect version of this, where it's like more important to like respond to the thing you care about correctly than to like respond to all the other things like decently. Like it's way more important to like hit your perfect CC dash grab out of like their action than like the three interactions before it where like maybe you got clipped by a back air or like they jabbed you and you had to like roll or something like that. Like a lot of interactions are actually kind of like irrelevant, and as long as you just focus on the most important ones, and Jmook does it to like an annoying degree. He'll just like stand there for 3 seconds doing no inputs and then input like crouch power shield wave dash out like perfect jab grab, and it'll all just be kind of like a blind like sequence of like inputs, but he's making sure that like the moment he triggers that sequence is based on like a stimuli that he is like very certain of, and like he'll just kind of ignore most other things that you're doing. And I think that's just like a skill he's particularly good at.
I feel like that's probably why I get run over with Shine so much. Is like I'm focusing on so much, and then that moves frame one. So like GG, just focus, you know,
Yeah, like which situation?
or just like I don't know. In the set, you'll see like I'll just get Shine a million, or like and against Fox, like whenever that whenever my vision goes blurry, you know, that's when I start to get Shined a million times. That's when
Mm-hmm.
I start to like
Mm-hmm.
just get ran over with the shines.
Yeah, that makes sense. Okay, let me get the stream going.
Yeah, this set I started playing ranked literally like yesterday, and I won 7 sets in a row. Then I got 4-4 Cray, so I guess this is just the best one to do. And yeah, I noticed like I just kept dying to him like perfectly getting me into the corner. Like I think what you're saying, he's looking for that one stimuli, and that's me in the corner and
Mm-hmm.
on the platform, and it'll kill me off every time. That's what happened.
Mm-hmm. Okay, I'm gonna watch for like a couple minutes. I might watch like half
Okay.
the game or something, and if I'll mention something if it just pops up and it's really obvious to me. But overall, I just want to like take a look. Okay, that's funny. Hmm. Okay, I'm getting some thoughts.
Yeah. Oops.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Hmm. Okay, that was good.
I just missed like 3 needle edge guards in a row. That's kind of makes sense that LS has won this bad.
It happened. I'm not super worried about that part right now. Hmm.
I just finished.
Okay. All right, I'm glad that was a short one. Made it easy to just watch the whole game really quick. Okay. Hmm. There's a few things that I noticed, and they're somewhat abstract, but I kind of want to mention them.
Okay.
Okay, so I'm trying to think of like what order to mention them in. Okay, so it's kind of like a combo of like three things that are kind of like meshing together, and so
Okay.
I'm trying to think of exactly like how to like super tear it apart and like describe it. Um, so okay. There's a lot of times when you're making defensive decisions, you're making like absolute defensive decisions, which can work really well against Falco if your entire goal is to get away. But it's like a pure reset rather than going for something where you're like, I am putting myself in a somewhat safe position, but if you try to hit me for it, then I might get you. For example, like doing like just like a backflip, back air or something in a spot rather than like the full hop. It's just a little bit more active. Like it feels like when you make defensive choices, there's no like when you're making defensive choices, there needs to be some form of like a bait involved most of the time. It's hard to describe because there's sometimes where like making this decision is like not the worst thing in the world necessarily, like going up here, but it does put you in like a disadvantage, like a small disadvantage without really getting you a lot. Like I think if you were here, I don't know. Okay, maybe I can find another example. That one was kind of strange. Okay, maybe here. Like what like I guess what's the goal out of this situation, you know?
Like jumping out of shield there.
Yeah, like going to the plat here with the waveland.
Um, I don't know. I'm afraid he's gonna. I don't even know. Yeah, it's just by habit, I guess, to go out on the
It's
platform.
just kind of like, well, Falco's there, so I'll move out of his way.
Yeah, I'm out of the way. Yeah, I should have
And
just like nared or something.
and so like there's no threat to Falco because you just there was no intention on your part outside of moving out of the way. And moving out of the way isn't necessarily wrong as long as you have like a plan on how to play the next situation like really well. Um, so like and you're both at zero and stuff. It's not the worst decision in the world. I guess it just felt very like, well, I'll go up to the platform because this interaction won't hit me, and then once I'm on the platform, I'll figure it out. And it just didn't feel. It doesn't feel very like intentional. Um, and it sort of like gives the Falco a feeling too that you're playing around them, and that was the another thing that I wanted to mention is that like you have zero death combos on Falco with tech chases and gimps and all kinds of juggles, but you're not playing like you have those threats. You're playing like Falco does his thing, and your job is just to move around his thing, and then the other part to it is that you move around Falco and then you sort of are like, how do I describe it? You're like there's a position and then you'll reset the position or like try to reset. So it's like even or slightly negative out of a reset. And then like now you're in this new neutral situation. The new situation is just as even as the last one if you stalemated it. But like now that you stalemated the situation once, you treat the new situation like a situation where like, oh, now Falco, like I stalemated once, so Falco will probably overcommit on his next attack and I'll hit him out of that one. And like I think that works against like really really bad Falcos, but it like does it's not like a rational way to play the game at like a high level because like you didn't do anything to create the advantage state. If your goal in the even position is to stalemate, that's okay if you're like looking for info or something like that, but you're not like, oh, it's an even position, stalemate, look for info. Even position after the stalemate again and look for info while looking for like an advantageous position. It feels like you take the stalemate and you're like, well, now that I've done the stalemate, Falco will try to break it, and I'll hit him for it. And it creates kind of like a thing where you're kind of like just like punishing really low level options. And then if they don't do this really low level option, you kind of are just like making it predictable when you'll engage. So let me find a little bit more like stuff to it. So it happens here, and even though it's kind of basic, is that you stalemate, and then you're like, well, I stalemated, and you're kind of in like a somewhat negative position after the stalemate. You did it twice, like 2 stalemates, and you're a little bit negative here, but you're still like, well, I stalemated, and so now I'll just go in. There's no like I think, let's say you go up to the platform here, and then you specifically think, okay, Falco's going to laser up tilt. So I'm going to like delay going off the platform, and then after the up tilt, I'll run off fast fall back air and go for a grab. That would be like a potential way to play out of this situation if you had decided to not keep stalemating it. But you just kind of stalemate, and then you're like, well, now I probably have an opening or something, and Falco just like hits you for it.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, it's like when you're in a situation like this, it's like you haven't actually gotten an advantage yet. If you're attacking from this position, it's just like a pure gamble. It's up to the Falco whether I win or not. Because Falco has plenty of ways to respond to this position by just like crouching or standing there. He's at really low %. The back air is not going to be good unless he just like jumps and lasers randomly, which he's probably not going to do because you're right above him. So it feels like there's like a little bit of like an unwillingness to like play the real situation and try to like, for instance, to get like a run-up shield where you're kind of right in Falco's face or something like that, or catch him out of an approaching laser with like an F tilt, or dash up shield and grab the down air. Like if you think of the moves he has, it's like, okay, he's got grab, which, you know, can put you in a disadvantage, but ultimately isn't the worst thing you have to worry about. He's got aerials, which you can shield. And he's got lasers, which if you shield the laser, maybe he can grab you. Other than that, he can just shield pressure. So he doesn't actually have, like, especially at 0, or like when you're at low %, I should say, not at 0. When you're at low %, he doesn't have like a ton of ways to like get big combos or anything. Like a lot of his combos are like really precise and stuff like that. And I just feel like you're not playing the grounded neutral as if it's like strong for you in any way, whereas it definitely is. Like you have threats of 0 death from the very first laser. From the very first laser he shoots, that's a potential like, oh, maybe I ran up in my power shield and I wave dash in and then I dash back and I shielded, or I wave dash back and I shielded and then Falco downed it in and I killed him out of it. And like that should be running through your brain in these situations, not like Falco goes in, I go up, and now maybe Falco's open if I attack.
Yeah, I've been like focusing on like playing very reactively recently, and to me personally, that's meant like, oh, I have to move out of the way and find the opening, and that's me moving out of the way and finding the opening. But like, there's also, I guess I was like too stubborn to like also be like, oh, I can also play reactively and also like advance. Like it's not.
Yeah, that's why it's funny because you're like, well, I'm perfectly reacting to their option and then like disengaging.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, if you knew Falco was coming in on you and that's why you left, then you probably could have done some form of mix-up to actually beat his approach. Like, you clearly knew he was approaching, you know?
Yeah.
And if that had been like a crouch forward tilt or something, or anything like that, he could just die immediately, and you wouldn't even have to deal with any of this. So yeah, this entire stock basically happened because your actions for the stock are either stalemate, or like stalemate and then like just try to hit Falco. And Falco just keeps punishing you for that, or punishes you like a couple times. And then, yeah. And that was just like a good laser down smash, to be honest. And yeah, that happens from time to time. I'm not going to worry too much about the down air. But yeah, that's just like a stock that kind of just dropped because of that. Let's see. Yeah, and you kind of just do it again, where you go to the plat, and you're like, okay, now that I have...
Just grab there.
Like, it feels like you're running away while swinging a sword behind you. And you're like, oh, like...
Donkey Kong. I'm literally playing Donkey Kong.
Yeah, I mean, that is fair. You have spent this entire time playing Donkey Kong, and like... Or a lot of time playing Donkey Kong, and like... Donkey Kong can't really do anything. So like,
He really is not a character.
yeah, so it's like I can't blame people for developing like bad habits when they play a character who can't really do anything. So I get it.
I need to visualize my options facing forward now, because I don't have, I don't have just frame 25 forward air.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna write down I'm not Donkey Kong.
Yeah, you're not Donkey Kong. You have a forward tilt. You have a good shield. You still have the good grab, but your shield is good now. Like you have a 3-frame jump squat. You can nair out a shield. You have needles. You have all these tools that like you can use all of those tools to gain an advantage. So like it's just that like if you want to bait Falco and then hit him, which is basically this sequence, you need to be putting yourself like a bait is when you intentionally make yourself look hittable. But you're like very intentionally being like, you can't hit me. Your next action can never even touch me ever. And if that's true, you're not really interacting. Like you're not going to be baiting anything because like the Falco knows that they can't hit you. You've made that abundantly clear that you are too far away for them to hit. And so the odds of their next action being an overcommitment is very low unless they're really bad because like they know they can't commit and get you. And like needles from platform stuff is fine. Like, this is a totally fine interaction to have. And I think this is like another thing in general. When you're playing better Falcos, I think it's true for all the characters, but for some reason it's really easy to like develop like an incorrect mentality on this. Is that the goal of Melee is not to punish bad options. That is how bad players play Melee. The goal of Melee is to punish good options. And I think a lot of people, because a lot of Falcos have like 4 brain cells, and it's not their fault in a lot of ways, the character's really complicated, but most of the time, especially at like a sort of like pretty decent level, but not like really good, you can just beat every Falco for free by just punishing their mistakes. And you're just like, well, these were all bad choices, and I punished those. But like, well, what if? But it's like, okay, that's fine. Maybe the Falco was just bad or dumb. But it's like, okay, well, what if you were the Falco and you were good? You wouldn't be like, if you were playing for years and actually working on the game and stuff like that, you wouldn't be making such bad decisions all the time that are so easily punishable. At least at a theoretical level. Once you get into tournament, maybe you notice somebody choking and you're like, do it, spot dodge, or something like that. Like, there's ways to, like, manipulate bad behavior out of good players. But that is not how, like, you should be practicing or, like, thinking of the game. You should be thinking of, like, oh, I need to punish them for making this really good choice, because it looked like this was the right option here, so I will punish that. Whereas, versus, like, kind of assuming that they're just going to be like bad, because that just gives you bad practice, even if it makes beating the baddies even easier.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
And especially against the Falcos, this is what I always tell people, is like, you do not want to be 4-stocking bad Falcos. If you're 4-stocking bad Falcos on the regular, or like beating up Falcos really bad, that's a horrible sign. Because like, you should be kind of mediocre against bad Falco if you're good against good Falco. Because you should be like, well, I'll just punish this laser because that's good here. And then they're like, I did a bad down air and hit you and then did a shine combo. And those will never add up to enough to actually beat you if you're better than them in tournament. But like, I would say most of the time against bad Falcos, like, I'll go like down to 2 stocks, and then maybe against a good Falco, I'll 3-stock him or 4-stock him sometimes. But that doesn't really happen against the bad ones, unless like I really like just gonna shield grab, But like, that's not good practice when your ultimate goal is to be beating better players. And the other player, if they're good, will actually get kind of annoyed. I always get annoyed when people try to just punish my mistakes. I'm like, you don't respect me. But a lot of times it just means they have a bad practice like regimen or like a bad practice partner. Yeah, and this again, you're just exclusively trying to catch bad decisions by Falco, and it's not necessarily bad to practice stuff like that, but you will not beat like good players past a certain point trying to just punish like bad choices.
Yeah,
Um,
I don't really get to necessarily play against good players very often. I
mhm.
just got Ethernet, so I'm just starting to
Right,
navigate.
right. Now that makes sense. I think this F tilt is great because it's like the first time this game. It's been like two stocks. This is the first mix up you've played that was like a
Yeah,
real mix up where you're like, oh, Falco's gonna approach. I'm at low percent. If I trade my F tilt with down air, like, what's the big deal? And you just get this, and then you're
yeah,
like,
yeah.
boom, big combo time. And then you're like, all right, back to like sitting on the plat and like hoping they give it to me. And it's like, it worked a lot better when you were just like playing the game.
Yeah, I'm like trying way too hard, and which is good that that's not how I have to play because I'm just like this is so boring.
Mm-hmm. No, that makes sense. Because I think if you're purely making choices to like keep yourself safe and punish their bad decisions, um, you're not gonna like see a lot of openings because they're
Yeah,
just like they just see you like go ahead, make a bad choice, and they're like I won't, and they just kind of like laser dash back forever, and the
yeah,
game gets really boring. But like if you're like come on in, and they're like no I'm gonna laser dash back, and you're like I gained some space, now it's a little bit less comfortable, and you start working your way in, like finding advantages, figure out when they're uncomfortable, make a read, and that's the thing is it feels like you can kind of see, like you can kind of see when they want to approach and stuff. You're just like using a bad response in your head that you're like not willing to like really play them because you're like well I could get out of the way and then I could JV5 them because they'll never hit me ever.
yeah,
Whereas like you're not really looking at like that will blind you from like real opportunities.
yeah. I'm playing like I'm just like dodging the enemy. That's all I'm doing.
Yeah, exactly. And that works great when the opponent is literally a Mega Man enemy, which does
Yeah,
happen. But when you want to like beat like a human and they're playing with like real ideas and stuff, you want to be thinking about their ideas. And that's the thing is you'll get these. You get these where you're like, ha ha. And it's like, yeah, that's just not like it's not like worth that much because like you didn't like actively find this. You just kind of like the thing is this isn't the worst thing ever because you like okay, you did win off of an outplay here, but it was like an outplay in a position where you were kind of giving it up
it's like
already.
playing the same poker hand like 1,000 times. Like I finally won it that time. I don't know.
Yeah, no, exactly. Like, and it's not like a great hand to be playing either.
Yeah.
And like the Falco just made it back from that without too much trouble. Oh, I like that downer there. I wouldn't have, I feel like I would have done like a shine. Been bad. That was a good downer. Yeah, so I like this. Like you come back, you start pressuring. Yeah, and that's the thing is when you come back invincible because they can't hit you, you just start playing real mix-ups for like 2 seconds.
Yeah,
Like you come back and you're like, well, there's no need to react for now. Yeah, so when Falco's coming back, your thought should be like, okay, like first of all, survive the invincibility, and then once you, and I'd say probably, Edge is pretty good. Edge is pretty good against Falco. He has a really hard time covering the ledge stall, especially if you just chill here for a second, and then like when he finally comes down, then you just go to the edge. Pretty good. But once you get out of that, oh, okay, I like this though. Like I like that like you played a grounded mix up on the laser immediately. Okay. Yeah. And let's grab a second game so we can talk more about this stuff.
So you think like being a bit more of a W holder would be more proactive than how I'm playing now, like to learn.
Not a W holder. You want to just
Well, a bit
mix.
more.
You want to mix your ideas in a way that like makes them like high quality. So you're like, you know, a defensive bait gets stronger when they don't expect it as much.
Mhm.
And so it's like if you've made like you're looking for the outplay at all times. Let's see, what was the way you were saying it? Let me think if I can like adapt that.
I'm just looking at my opponent really hard and trying not to get hit and like put myself in a good
Oh yeah,
position.
no, you were saying like becoming like more of a W holder or whatever.
Oh yeah, I was like, do you think
Yeah, okay.
like it's actively betraying my brain to play like I'm playing in this set? Like it's actively going against what my brain is doing, and that's why I think it's good because I've been bad for so long.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think like doing something that's uncomfortable or doing something that's not what you're used to is really good a lot of times because it gives you like extra growth because it's unfamiliar. But then like but then it can very easily get to a point where you're like now imbalanced in that direction.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so I think it's like good to go out on a limb and like I would say like there was a period like what like 3 weeks ago or 4 weeks ago like a few weeks ago for me where I played like this for like a week straight.
Yeah,
Like on
that's what I've been
purpose.
doing.
I just
Yeah.
literally like stalemated every spot and I just tried to react and punish the easy openings and stuff like that. And it was to like work on that piece of my game because it is a piece of the game that's important to be good at. But then like after like a week, I kind of got sick, or after even like a few days, I got kind of sick of like not being able to get openings on good players, and you kind of just lose to people. Um, but it's good. It's good to like explore those pieces of the game, and like it's good to play that way, so that you can like reaffirm that it's not good. You know,
Yeah.
like it's because sometimes you just be making too many mix-ups, and you're like, wait, I need to step back, and I need to like play it patient, and then you start playing it patient, and they just start giving you everything, and you're like, oh wait a minute, I should have just been letting them give it to me this whole time. Then you become the give it to me person, and then everybody's just like, oh, like we just need to not give it to them, and like it's
Yeah.
easy. And then you're like, okay, so I'm like gonna make sure that I'm the person who's like, I'm not gonna like give it to you, but like if you don't give it to me, I will come take it from you. And I
Yeah,
think
for
that's
sure.
like a better mentality a lot of times. Is like if I'm playing somebody and it's the first stock at a major or something like that, I will play pretty stalemate heavy or pretty reactive. I don't usually like to just start running in on people because I want to know like what's up, you know. And then like once you've sort of demonstrated that like because a lot of times when you're playing that way, if you don't like if you're playing really stalemate heavy and you don't flip the switch and like stalemate attack and you just keep doing stalemate, like it is pretty good to do. Like a lot of times, especially like a major, like a lot of people will just kind of run into it, and then you meet the one person in bracket, like you finally make it far enough that you do that, and then they do that, and you realize that you can't really get them by just playing safe, and then you start actually like, okay, now I'll try to like find some mix-ups and like stuff like that. So I think like both like the mix-up part of the game and like the sort of like runaway type stalemate part of the game are like both important, and it's just important not to get like overly pulled into one so hard. Like if you're too heavy on the mix-up grind and like doing mix-ups every time, a lot of times that um how should I say it? Like people interpret mix-ups as like something that they're doing with their moves, whereas like a stalemate or like moving back is just a mix-up. And it's just difficult to take the aggro mix-up of what we would think of as like just playing the mix, like committing to something, and like stalemating as a mix-up and like really mixing those together.
Yeah.
So I think like if you feel like you're imbalancing too much in one direction, it's fine to go in another direction. Like it's fine to go on like a stalematey path like this for a little bit, but it's not good to like stick on it too much or start like believing that's how you should play or that that's really like the good way to play at all.
Yeah, well, like what you're saying earlier is like you have to learn how to create these baits. And now in my brain, I immediately start stressing out like, how am I going to create a bait? Like that's so stressful. Like I don't even know like how am I going to know what my opponent's thinking? But do you think that kind of comes naturally from switching in between like this playing stalemate and going for the mix up? Is that like or like putting in the stalemate mix up, like making them think that you're not going to buy or something? I don't, you know what I mean?
Hmm.
Or like how would I go about starting to work in these like if I want to punish like a frame like a really good low nair on shield in the shine, like what how should I go about like doing this? Like you know what I mean? Or how should I go about punishing good plays?
Hmm. So, yeah, like okay, so like what is your model of the opponent when you're playing them like usually? Like I know right now it's a little bit tilted towards like just hit the character or avoid the hitboxes and hit them. But like
Yeah.
what are you thinking of like their perspective?
Uh,
What in your brain is like your simulation of them while you're playing the game?
they're pretty much the only thing I think about is they're trying to like get me to approach them, and they're trying to make me, and they're trying not to get grabbed. They want me to for some reason I'm like they
Mm.
want me to approach them, or they want me to do something bad. Yeah, I think everybody plays like me. Everybody
Mm.
wants me to approach them and do something bad, or they're just trying not to get grabbed by me, or it just really. I actually don't really know. I'd have to like think about it more when next time I play.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because I think like so the opponent's okay, I'll just describe my point of view on it rather than trying to
Okay.
extractify it too much. Is that I don't think of an opponent's game plan very much while I'm playing them because like their game plan is not necessarily like what they're thinking. It's like I'll use it as a basis to kind of build like a very basic background model for them. But then when I actually play the game, I think of it like in terms of like a conversation. Like, I don't know, if I'm talking to someone, I'm not thinking like they want me to like them. You know, like I'm not like, let's say that's their game plan, but I'm not thinking of that while I'm talking to them. I'm just thinking of like what they're saying and like what they're trying to express. And you're kind of like it's like very conversational in that sense of like what do they want, how do they feel, like sometimes like for like an easy example is they try to crush you by like spamming a bunch of moves but you like avoid them and you get a punish. Do they give up on that? Like some people, the second you get your first shield grab, they'd be like, "Oof, I gotta like camp it up," And some people they start campy, and the second you get your first opening, they start like rushing in. And so
Yeah.
like paying attention to like your opponent's like emotional and like mental state of like what are they trying to do to you in order to secure their victory in the moment. Not like their overall game plan, but like literally like they're doing a set of dash dances and you're like, are they trying to get in off those dash dances?
Yeah.
Like when I'm playing well, at least. When I'm playing well, that's all I'm thinking about while I'm playing. I'm just entirely like, do they feel like going in now? Do they feel like running away now? Like, because it's kind of like when you're playing, you make like a flavor that you want each interaction to take. For instance, are you going to forward tilt the approaching laser or are you going to stalemate it? You have decided that before they do that input. Like before they move forward, you've decided whether you were going to attack or run away when they did that thing.
Yeah.
And they're doing the same thing to you, where they're making their choice to attack you or defend or to do whatever before the interaction happens. And your goal is to kind of like smell that. Like your goal is to figure out like what their intention and like mindset is for the next interaction before the next interaction happens. Like when they hit you, or like let's say they hit you but it's like they hit your shield, are they gonna like retreat or are they gonna double down on your shield? Being able to like think about, does it feel like based on their behavior and mannerisms like in the game and like the current situation that's coming up, does it feel like they are going to keep trying to hit me after the first hit? And if that is true, where you really do believe that they're going to try to hit you after the first hit, then maybe wave dash at a shield grab or up smash at a shield or something like that, where you're making a choice because you're like, I feel like they planned this next interaction to go like this. and so I am going to use this option to defeat that plan. That is like what you should be thinking for literally every interaction that you ever have in this game.
I've like asked so many top players. I like when I first started playing Melee, I donated $30. I'm like, Armada, what are you thinking about while you're playing? And he said, I'm not thinking about anything. And you're like the first person that gave me something to actually think about. Like,
yeah, I feel like it's because like you get good and your brain just kind of like hides it away. I think it's true for everything. You like ask like good musicians and they're like, I just play. It's like it's the same thing. Like you just get good and you forget. But I'm glad I can offer something to help.
Yeah. So what you're like, knowing your opponent's intentions, even if they choose like a really good option, if you know that it's like, if you know their intention, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, that should just be like the game all the time. Is that like they're going to do a good thing, and I know this because I believe them to be smart and rational. And if the smart and rational choice plus their energy here is like what I think they're gonna do. Like, like, there's a lot of interactions that happen with Falco that make it really easy to like perceive of like it's kind of abstract, but like let me like describe it of like Falco comes down with a laser, you take the laser, you dash in, Falco dashes away, shoots the laser, then spends a second in the corner, down airs out of the corner, you retreat, then you dash in again. And like I know it sounds kind of like a long situation or whatever.
No, that makes
But the idea is that like in that spot, I would say most Falcos, and I'm going to be reading it based on like, you know, stuff they're doing and stuff, but most Falcos there do not. Okay, what I would say is if from that position they go back into the corner and laser again, in my head I'm thinking, okay, this is a Falco who plays like very reactively and they play very safe. And their goal in the matchup is probably designed around like laser ranges, and like they don't want to play a mix-up with me. Like they've shown they don't want to play the mix-up. They want to retreat and get the safe laser positions and stuff like that. And like my decision-making for the rest of the match will change against that Falco because of that interaction if they go back to the corner. But I'm not going to read them going back into the corner most of the time because I'm kind of assuming that the Falco mains are kind of like not that systematic, unless sometimes you can just tell. You're like, oh, that's a really nerdy Falco main. They love the laser camp. And for those people, they're probably going to go back into the corner. But most Falcos, after they get this first down air or whatever and you back off, they're going to try to play an aggro mix-up because they don't want the feeling that like you're forcing them back into the corner. They didn't want this position in the first place. Now they finally got out, and now you're just going to move forward, and they're just going to give up and go back is what they're thinking, and then they want to fight it out. So like the shield here to beat the second down air is going to be way more effective than like if I just moved out of his way again, because I can feel that there's something happening thought-wise in this position. It's a little bit abstract, but let me know how much sense that makes.
No, yeah, you're making sense.
Okay.
Yeah, for sure.
But like that's the type of calculation that's going like all the time, and that's what makes the game extra engaging. Because like if the game was really just about avoiding their hitboxes and hitting them for making bad choices, people would just get good up to a certain point, and then we would never hit each other again because we would all be making good choices. But at the high level, we're all making good choices, and we're all just tearing each other apart because we're like, you tried to be too safe, you tried to be too aggro, you got too frustrated, you thought platforms were too safe, you thought dashback was too safe, you thought your nairs were too good, etc. Like you can just constantly capitalize on like the next thing that they're going to think. And so like when you start a game against somebody, rather than thinking I'm going to get out of the way of their character, sometimes you just get out of the way of their character because you're trying to look at what choice they make. Like, did they do a laser in place or an approaching laser? Maybe if I go to the platform, you know, they'll do one of those two, and I'll kind of get like a feel if there's somebody who thinks they can approaching laser there or not. You know, you can kind of get a handle on like what people think is like their zone, or what people think is like the spacings that they want, or whether they think that they can like pressure you, or whether they feel like you're going to try to get in on them. You want to be tracking all those variables as much as you can while you play, and then like when you make a bad choice, you can be like, what did I like misunderstand about their flow there? Like, how did they trick me? Every time they hit you, when they're good enough, it should feel like they tricked you. I feel like I get tricked by the bad players too, but you sort of have to just be like, no, they're just doing their thing. Like, they're reacting like an imaginary stimuli and down airing. It's not what I'm calculating at all. So it'll feel like the bad players are like extra hard reading you, but they're actually just not paying attention. That's just how it always goes. That's just important to keep in mind, that when you start playing with like really good decisions and really trusting them to make good decisions, there's a certain level of player that just becomes kind of like useless to play against. And what I do against them is I just win with tech skill and punish, and like I said, I usually like 2-stock those people. Okay, where are you at after I talked about all that stuff? I know I've been going for a bit.
Where am I at?
Yeah, like, where are you at mentally, like, after talking about that? Like, what's on your mind?
I'm excited to go and play people, like, and just try to dissect them like a little critter.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
That's solid, like, I don't know, yeah.
Okay, cool. No, I was just curious, like, I wasn't expecting you to have, like, a thesis ready or anything. I was just curious, like, you know, if that, like, made sense to you, or if you're thinking, like, yeah, but, or stuff like that, you know? Or, like, yeah, and...
Do I have any buts?
If you don't, I can just keep going, but if you do, that's why I gotta check.
Yeah, I don't think I have any buts.
Okay.
Yeah, what the heck? Yeah, I can see now, like, if I'm just trying to react to my opponent's position, like, how much information I'm, like, not using. And
yeah, you're just missing out on, like, all of it. Because, like, every single one of these lasers is, like, info, you know?
Yeah, and I'm just like, oh, this guy's lasering me, and I'm not properly executing the same stuff to beat it, and that's why I'm losing. Like, I'm thinking I'm losing because of my execution and reactions. In reality, like,
yeah, like, this is what a lot of people do against Falco, is they just see this. Like, they just see, like, this. They just see the bird. And they're like, there he is. Bird's there.
Yeah.
Bird's there.
Yeah. That's exactly
Bird's there. Okay. Bird is coming towards me. Move back. Bird is leaving. Like, you
that's
know?
what's going on in my head.
No, that's like almost everyone against Falco, and that's why sometimes playing Falco is really frustrating, because you're just like, they don't even see me. Because it just feels like they're just tracking bird positioning and not like actual choices that like the character is making of like, this is how many lasers without like committing, you know? Like, it's like, okay, defensive laser, dash back, and then, like, oh, feeling like they're kind of going to move in, but they're doing a lot of, like, dash backs out of their laser. Like, I would be pretty likely in this position to, like, I would immediately go to the ground, try to get them to set up, and then read the dash back, because they're just doing the dash back laser. And then, like, after you hit them for doing the dash back laser, maybe they'll change. And then that's your job to, like, now read that. Okay. Oh, that's an up air. Small thing, but definitely an up air.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Another small thing. When you're late here, just always boost grab.
Really?
Most people shield there for dash attack. It's just like a... If you're already going to make the choice and you know you're late, it's like at least the boost grab has like a better chance. Yeah, like, I think the fact that, like, no choices were made by you here is like, scary.
What do you mean?
Like, in here. Like, there wasn't... let me think of the best way to describe it. Like, you're moving, but, like, what are you threatening, you know? Like, I think a lot of times, like... Okay, so what I would say is I think this movement against Fox would not be bad, but against Falco it is, because Falco is usually just short-hopping. So, like... Threatening the boost grab with a dash dance against Fox might cause Fox to, like, full hop or dash back or, like, otherwise feel the need to move. But if you're just dash dancing, most of the time Falco's just going to shoot like a laser anyway.
Yeah.
And so, like, what I would much rather you be doing here is trying to do something. Like, you could like wave dash in and crouch, and like I just want you to be more in on him, especially like at 0 and stuff like that, rather than trying to like just like abuse the range. Yeah. Okay, I think this was good. Like this fair was good. So what I would have liked after this fair is some form of like if you're actually going in on Falco here, like you're moving towards Falco, you should have a feel of like after this fair, is Falco immediately going to try to jump on my head, or is he going to try to do safe lasers? And it's like, based on all the evidence so far this game, I would guess that it would be like some form of a safe laser after this fair. So I would be way more likely to be like, I'll do this fair, and then I'll like dash attack, or I'll do this fair, and then I'll instant nair, or I'll do this fair, and then I'll walk up forward tilt, or something like that. And look, here's the defensive laser. Now after this laser, is he immediately down airing in? And I don't remember, I didn't see this the first time. Is he immediately down airing in? Well, since he hasn't done an immediate down air in this entire game after a laser at this range, I would be way more likely to think that he's probably going to do a dash dance and try to bait out a forward tilt at this range. Boom! He tries to bait out the forward tilt. Although I would have... Okay, if I was watching his VOD, I would have been like, this wave dash was so bad. Look, Sheik did a nair and you couldn't even punish it because you wave dashed away. Regardless, the decision making was the same. Of like, after that laser, there was going to be like a retreat, you know? And so I think like, this is the real way you get openings in the game. Not like I go to plat and Falco jumps in and I hit him, although sometimes that works. The real way you get the opening is you fair in, Falco's in the corner, you know this is a Falco that doesn't like cross-ups, so you read them going back, and you like go in here somehow and hit them for like this defensive sequence they're doing. And like that is the type of opening where you should feel like if you took this laser and forward tilted and you hit them, that should feel like, yes, like I am good and I am playing the right game.
Yeah, because a lot of stuff, kind of like laser kind of like feels like a gamble, but I guess now if I
it is a gamble. The whole game is gambles. Yeah. But like the better you get, the more informed your gambles are, and you can also just like like I don't know, Melee's a weird game where sometimes you can like if they raise and you fold, you just win the whole pot. And so it's like you're like, oh, like sometimes the stalemate and stuff like that like works out, but like ultimately you need to be comfortable making the gambles in order to like play the whole game. Because if you aren't making the gambles ever, then like they know, you know, like they know that like you're not making the gambles, so like they don't need to play around all these different choices that you could be making. They only need to play around like your basic plan, which is to like get out of their way and then hit them somehow. And that's just way easier to play against than someone who's like, what are you gonna do? I'm gonna hit you. This is a thing that I took from I just said it like a long time ago after playing Mango, which is that like he makes it feel like any button you press could be a wrong button. Even the safest button you know could be a wrong button. Even stalemating perfectly on a platform could be a wrong button because Mango will like jump up early and position himself to like beat you for doing it.
That's how I feel against everybody.
It's how you feel against everyone?
Everyone in the world, like, yeah, I feel like every button is like the wrong one.
Well, I mean, okay, to some degree, if you're not playing mix-ups, eventually somebody will hit you with their mix-up. And it'll feel like that in general. But what I want to show you is that, like, you can be making them feel like that all the time by just, like, actually playing real mixes. And the mix doesn't always need to be a move, but it needs to be, like, a real mix. Like, there needs to be there needs to be a negative case. If there's no negative case, it's just a stalemate. And you can't win by stalemating and then attacking. That's like... It's like the... like... what's the right word for it? It's like... It's kind of like... Yeah, it's just the running away swinging the sword thing. It's like, why are you here? Is like how it feels. Yeah. To like try to stalemate and attack, and this is the big fox thing. This is what I get after all the foxes for. Is the foxes, they will dash back across the entire stage to total safety, to unimpeachable safety, the safest safety of all time. And then what do? They
Up to it.
dash full approaching Nair. They full hop approaching Nair across the entire stage that they just retreated from. And the reason why is because in their brain, they're going like, I'm in danger. I got to get out of the way. And now they're safe. And they're like, yeah, I'm safe, huh? Well, maybe you're not. And they're like, I can get you. Now that I'm safe, I feel comfortable to attack. And that is a mentality that will just get torn apart by better players, you know?
Yeah, that's how I'm playing right now.
Yeah, exactly. And so it's like you don't want to if you're too safe if you're safe from them, and they're not awful. Most of the time they're gonna be safe from you. And so like a lot of times it gets really messy, but you want to like the better you are, the more you can be like, well, my worst, like if I'm wrong here and you are right. For instance, there's maybe like positions where maybe you dash attack under a fox drill and then you pre-SDI, you know, or something like that, where you're kind of like, my worst case is that like I get hit by this, and then in that case I am kind of prepared and I'm trying to like minimize the risk and I'm trying to like DI really well in case it goes wrong. And then if it goes right, you want that to be your biggest best case ever big punish, you know. And so a lot of the game is like finding your big, like, this could be my big good moment while making sure it's not a bad moment without it being like, I want to make my good moment without any risk of a bad moment, because that goes too far, and then now you're missing out on all of these tools that actually let you play the mix-ups.
Yeah, I gotta feel the heat of the porch. That's what you're saying.
What's up?
I said I gotta feel the heat of the porch. Is what you're saying.
Yeah. No, exactly. Like there needs to be some form of risk, or you're just not like doing things. You know, it's like betting 10 cents every hand.
Yeah.
And you never go up from that. And it's like it's rough. You're not going to be able to like actually get a lot of big wins or like play the exciting game you want to play or like really like read people or like stuff like that. So yeah, we're about at an hour.
Okay.
Do you have any additional thoughts or questions? I feel like that was honestly one of the best times I've ever explained those concepts, so I'm really happy about that.
Oh
But
yeah, I'm feeling very enthusiastic.
that's sick. But yeah, if you have any other thoughts or questions right now, this is the time.
Hmm. So, where do you suggest that I go from here? Because I'm thinking about just going and running into some, like, either hitting up a friend and just trying to play and trying to dissect them and trying to get into the mindset of doing that.
Mm-hmm.
Of trying to, find them. I don't know, see
I
them.
think that, like I said, you don't want to overcomplicate it.
Yeah.
So one thing you can do to maybe get it going is like find something specific. Like I was saying with like the Falco approaching laser.
Yeah.
Like
probably
rather
what
than
you do after
trying
that.
to understand and read every situation, break it down of like, can I read when this fox does approaching Nair? You know? That's an example of like, okay, I'll just kind of play neutral and I'll just sort of play, but I'm gonna try really hard to understand when the Nair is coming. And that can maybe be like a way to like introduce your brain to it a little bit and kind of get in like a better habit of doing that. It's going to be a little personal though. Like it's not something that I can give the same advice to everybody in this spot. Like I can explain the mindset and I can explain like don't overcomplicate, don't pay attention to every piece of info. Like you're gonna miss a ton of info. Like if there's 100 pieces of info, maybe I get 5 or 10, like literally. But like your goal is to improve so that the 5 or 10 you get are like more indicative of or like more descriptive of their whole play style. And you can do that like over time by learning like I was saying, like I know that if the Falco wants to go into the corner a second time with that laser, like that just tells me so much about them. And it's kind of like tells with people. Like somebody says something and you're like, wait a minute, is that person like this way?
Yeah.
Like, or are they from this place and stuff like that? You learn to like pick up tells, and so you just need to be focusing on like what info they're giving you and try to find important moments to think about and focus on, and then start building like an inner library of like their sort of mental state or like ideas based on like what is happening, based on like those factors you chose to view. And if you feel like the factors you chose to view are not giving you enough effective information, then you can maybe adjust it. Like, there have definitely been times where I have been playing and I'm like, oh, I need to keep track of every time they... I don't know, like, what's a good example? Like, maybe keep track of every time they auto-cancel back air or something like that as, like, a Falco, or against a Falco. But then, like, maybe you fight a Falco that, like, never auto-cancel back airs. And, like, once you realize they never auto-cancel back air, that part of your brain can start looking at, like, a different piece. Like, you can be like, okay, sure, they're a Falco who never does auto-cancel back air. But what are they doing in its place, you know? And, like, start looking at that factor. And so you just don't overwhelm yourself trying to catch everything. Assume you're going to get very little of the info, and your goal is to kind of try to, like, summarize or make... Like, you want to basically just make wild psychological reads based on, like, things you see in the game, and then test those on the very next interaction. Of, like, well, it feels like they're kind of scared of me, so maybe they're going to double jump. In the next interaction, you hard read the double jump, and you test for it. And if you're wrong, you go, ah, okay. And if you're wrong, I would say don't overthink exactly why you're wrong. You can think about it a little bit. But don't be like, oh, I should have looked at this piece, and I should have known that because of that. Just be like, oh, like, they didn't double jump there? Maybe I need to, like, have a different feeling before I decide that someone will double jump there, you know? And just sort of work on that. Kind of like... It's essentially you need to get a lot of this info into your head, and so just don't... Think of it as like you're like trying to learn a language and you're just like kind of passively absorbing a lot, but then you're like trying to catch words here and there, you know? And you're trying to catch words, but then you're kind of like catching some phrases, and you're kind of trying to build up from there is the idea.
Okay.
So don't get mad at yourself if this is hard initially. This is like something that like takes years to like build and master, and you just want to get it started now so it can like grow alongside you as you get like, you know, other stuff as you're learning.
Yeah, I'm sure I have some of it there just from playing so long, and it'll probably pop up.
Yeah, and I was saying, like, you can tell when they're gonna approach. Like, I can feel in a lot of spots that you can feel when they're going to make these choices. You just need to, like, rewire how you're interpreting that feeling.
Yeah. I know. I'll start naming Falcos into Jungian archetypes.
Yeah, perfect. Sounds good. All right. It was a good lesson. I hope you have a good one. Feel free to message me if you have any clips or questions.
Oh, for real?
Yeah.
All right. I won't do it too much, but I will if I have any. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, if you do it too much, if you send me like 30, then I'll be like, seems like it's time for another lesson. But if it's just a couple here or there, whatever, I promise it's not a big deal. And I will always tell you if it's too much so you can send away in the meantime.
Okay. And if I want another lesson, like let's say like, is it going to be possible, or are you going to...
Yes, no, you can just hop in the queue. The queue right now is probably like a week and a half. So it's really... It's not like it was, and I'm going to be scheduling a bunch like right after Smash Camp. So
okay, sounds good.
Realistically, you will get a lesson in June for sure.
Okay.
And probably in the next like few weeks pretty easily.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Yep, sounds good. Hope you have a good one.
You too. Bye-bye.
Peace.